The makeshift market hustled and bustled with excessive activity. I had more Saranai wares to sell to the humans, and being already known in the area, I had sold my wares almost immediately. I was out of stock within an hour of setting up my shop. The humans seemed more interested in learning about us more than anything else, so the archives, translation software, and a few bits of history books I could copy were the first things to go. Now faced with an empty shop, I decided to wander the market for a time to see what was around. All of them showed up today. Even the Skatani, the exploring loners of the universe, decided to show up and offer archives and media for trade. Were beside themselves. Humanity had created entire universes full of information within their video games and other media. Thousands of video games, thousands of different universes, all within a closed simulated environment. The galaxy wouldn't see the hide nor hair of the Skatani for centuries to come. Because of this, they'd be too busy trying to catalogue everything. I overheard a conversation with a human trying to explain why humanity won't sell them or trade some media, such as the SCP, or whatever that was. I took a look at one of the covers for this video game thing, showing a multi-headed monstrous insectoid beast with jaws the size of a house. I recoiled in horror and walked away, noting the name Helldivers as I scurried away. What nightmares do they create in their heads, or what horrors have they fought to be able to create that? I moved further into the market and found a group of humans swarming a food stand owned by the Yumai. A human told me they looked a bit like jellyfish, whatever that was, and apparently for a species without taste buds, they were making fantastic food. I could smell it. But as it turned out, a human had gone behind the counter, put on an apron, and had been teaching the Yumai how to cook recipes from a children's cookbook, using Yumai ingredients. The smells were something beyond phenomenal. Probably explained the crowd. The Yumai themselves were sometimes helping out, but mostly just standing aside and scribbling in notebooks. Humans could so easily and so quickly just walk in and take charge, just walking in and becoming the leader. The stomachs of these creatures could digest almost anything, and a legion of discerning taste buds effectively made them bigger food freaks than even the Yumai, and the Yumai had no taste buds, only olfactory sensors that were very strong. They tasted with their noses, basically, and they were very much enjoying what they were smelling. The Casanai Coalition were having a field day at their own market booth, trading for thousands of different musical instruments from the humans. Pianos, harps, electric guitars, acoustic guitars, synthesizers, even music mixing software. I wandered past at the perfect moment to see a human attempting to teach a Casanai how to use an instrument known as a hurdy-gurdy. The noise that thing made was scary, but the human played a song with it that was actually very nice. Then suddenly 3 other humans showed up and began playing a banjo, an accordion, and a drum, all in perfect tune to make what they called a sea shanty. The sight of humans suddenly and inexplicably grabbing something and then working perfectly together for no reason, even for a short amount of time, even for something so silly as a musical performance in such a spontaneous manner, terrified them. And me. We ignored it for now, because the song was great. The Juhai were beside themselves, exchanging with some high-ranking or important-looking humans, owing to how many of those huge, power-armored soldiers were gathered around their booth. The Juhai had expressions of horrified terror permanently affixed to their faces, as a human scientist, or scholar of some kind, explained something to them. I politely asked if I could go in and see, and was allowed. I caught the last bits of the conversation relating to something called the Manhattan Project, and I went pale at the mention of nuclear weaponry. Now I understood why. The humans not only developed nuclear energy as a weapon, they did it before using it as an energy source, and the first thing they did was use it in a war against themselves. Not just once, but twice. What really set them off was the concept that even if humans didn't have their phase shift tech, every ship that they owned had a nuclear payload. I had no idea why the humans were telling us this. Nuclears had been outlawed centuries ago, and every single human warship had perfect nuclear munitions in every single ship. The Kimbako, what humans described as spider aliens, had all been forced to wear hats to stop the humans from freaking out when coming near them. I approached their booth. All of them were in a state of mixed terror and elation. Simultaneously terrified and happy all in the same breath. I asked them why. They were all high as a bloom bug on a substance known as herbal tea, or green tea, which made them go into an almost drugged or calm state, and simultaneously terrified when a human explained why they needed to wear hats and socks. Apparently, their homeworld was home to some of the most toxic, poisonous, and venomous beasts in the galaxy, with one such arachnid carrying 40 different proteins in their venom. Proteins that dissolve flesh and disintegrate cells. They had closed their booth to calm down for a while, using up their only lunch break to try to stop freaking out. Is it any wonder humans are so vicious? When the world around them is so dangerous, maybe that's why they created the phase shift technology. It's because they needed to escape the world. The Dactharian was swarming with humans who were interested in their weapon selection. They weren't stupid enough to sell any real weapons and mostly kept to blades, clubs, and melee, while limiting their selection of projectile or firearms to basically what the humans themselves had. I wandered in to find a Dactharian Praetorian, the greatest of all their warrior caste, getting manhandled all too easily by one of the human legionnaires, while attempting to demonstrate the use of a Dactharian Wayblade. Humans had so much variance in their cultures it was absurd, to the point where there were hundreds of different styles, variances, and qualities of combat techniques. Even their mechanized or armored warfare had their own styles and techniques. These legionnaires were apparently taught all of them. The Dactharians were becoming increasingly ashamed, as this legionnaire ritualistically humiliated one of their best warrior castes in a friendly sparring match. As a galaxy, we had narrowly avoided extinction. The only reason we weren't all dead was because I said please. They could have ruined us. So very easily, and they chose simply to ignore us. The more I thought of it, the worse my mood got. They could shift entire planets from under our population's feet. I wondered what would happen if we decided to persist. What if they shifted the homeworld? What would have happened? Would our people have been flung into oblivion due to momentum, or would the gravity persist somehow? What if they phase shifted the planet back again? Would everyone just be gone and they could take over? What would have happened? And now, with their overuse of nuclear tech, especially their absurd nuclear weapons which were 50 times more powerful than the galactic standard, they could have come into any system, phase-shifted entire nuclear arsenals onto our worlds, and we would have been able to do jack and shit about it. I sat down on a bench in the middle of the pathway and started to dig myself deeper into despair. The more about them we discovered, the more about them we wish we never knew. Humanity has spawned in the universe and found a big red button with the word easy printed on it in big bold letters, and they never used it. The Katascani hoard the weapons and tech of hundreds of slave colonies and use it as a bludgeon to beat the galaxy into a state of terror. To negotiate with one to secure part of their tech for reverse engineering, we had to volunteer 50,000 slaves to them in tribute. The Dactharians were warrior mercenaries who would decimate entire worlds if anyone refused to pay the tariffs they were owed when a job was done. Billions in damages and millions of lives lost for something as simple as 20 credits short. And the humans, capable of effectively ending civilization, opened their doors for everyone who was willing. All because I said, please. Then I had an idea. I went over to one of the human politicians. I wanted to ask a question. I had an inkling. "Hello, human. I have a query," I said. "Huh, Fraxorantar, wasn't it?" he replied, casually shaking me by the hand in greeting. Yes, I am," I said, getting a twitch in my hand. "The man who started it all. What can I do for you?" "I have looked at some of your history, and I am wondering, why exactly did you choose to simply ignore the galaxy instead of, obliterating it and stealing everything that wasn't bolted to the floor? You had the option to phase shift entire worlds out from under us, yet your choice was to effectively just ignore it. Why?" I asked. 2 reasons. We only reached the core of the stars barely 20 years ago, and since we don't know the galaxy, we can't fathom at this point the guilt associated with the execution of billions of people for no reason. We nearly had that shit happen to ourselves at least twice, so we never thought it was a good idea. Killing for the sake of killing isn't our style, he replied. Ah, okay. Makes sense. And secondly, why? When you have the ability to ignore an opponent instead of engaging him, wouldn't you do the same? If you had the choice to just tell an opponent to shut up and fuck off with no repercussions, wouldn't you do the same? When you can just mind your own business instead of expending millions of lives, wouldn't you choose to just ignore them? He said. That's fair, but so many attacks, so many assaults, so many provocations. Surely there's something you can't tolerate, I said, exasperated at this point. Slavers, genocide, murder for murder's sake, slavery, can't stand any of that shit, he said with a smile. Oh, really? Then why are the Kataskani still around then? They're the worst slavers in the galaxy. And what about the Daktharians? And what about the Marakai? They regularly exterminate entire colonies that drift too close to their territory. What about them then? I yelled angrily, and held my head in my hands. Oh, those guys? Yeah, we got rid of them ages ago, he casually remarked. Say what now? I said. The Kataskani? The slaver dudes? Yeah, we collapsed their empire months ago. It was just after first contact. One of our exploration ships stumbled on their homeworld. We phased a few nukes into the palace and phased a few of our legionnaires into their slave markets. It was really hilarious to watch, he casually stated, as he explained how he and his ilk collapsed a civilization that lasted 10,000 years. And then there was that time we phased one of their ship's reactors out of the ship and used it for target practice right in front of them. God, that was funny. But my favourite was when they tried to attack one of our colonies. The slave master type dude? Yeah. He went on an angry rant after realising he couldn't do anything. One of our legionnaires got in a fighter and phased the poor bastard out of his own ship, and his entire crew had to watch one of our boys tearing him apart on his own ship. So much for the strongest, eh? He laughed in a scary fashion, as he relayed the death of Admiral Gwalathuk the Mad. And those Marakai dudes? Yeah, we got rid of them months ago. I don't give a shit about the whole get off my lawn thing. You do you, you know. I don't blame you for that. If they were willing to just sit in their own space and leave it be, they'd still be around by now. But no, they just had to attack one of our new colonies. Went badly for them. Now they're stuck in a case of limbo. We phased them all out of their universe and just left them there to rot, he said, again so casually relaying how they had phase-shifted an entire civilization out of existence. Yep, that was funny. Can still hear the racial slurs they were spitting out at us. That was so creative. I guess that is the best way to describe the way they were acting. Didn't have much time to respond as their planets froze. Their ships were wiped out too. It's amazing when you can just send in one engineer with a wrench in the middle of a reactor room. That is hilarious, he said again, in an all too casual, happy fashion. By this point, I was no longer responsive, and my jaw was now practically bolted to the floor in shock. This human was casually telling me how a few humans managed to just wipe out the few civilizations that had plagued the galactic consciousness for millennia. Again, this wouldn't have happened if they'd have just left us alone. All we want is to be left alone, and we will leave you alone. Live and let live. We won't encroach on your space and won't interfere with your private operations, if you do the same. All we ask is the polite courtesy that we give to you, to be given to us in turn. If you want nothing to do with us, fine. We want nothing to do with you, and we'll leave it at that. We as humans have a universal saying, what others give to you, return to them in kind. It's pretty much the same as it is today, he said again, still casual and uncaring. I have never heard of such a thing, I idly said, still in shock. Probably explains why the galaxy was so full of shit when we showed up. Seems manners are only a thing when it benefits those using them. But anyway, life goes on and a lesson is learned. Maybe the galaxy will become a better place. As the phrase goes, lead by example. Maybe things will change and we don't have to do anything else. But hey, we can all but hope, he casually said, patted me on the back and walked away. What a fucking insult.